What is going on with y'all, man? It is Black Balloon, and I'm coming back with another video, so y'all already know what's going on. Alright, y'all. As y'all can tell by the title, today we are here to talk about Angie Stone and the most recent news that has came out about her death, right? As we all know, her death is pretty deep. I did 2 videos on it. The first video was where we covered the details that immediately came out about the crash. Then we did a video about her ties to the industry, the Osiris Risen ritual, Aleister Crowley. We went deep in that video as far as the connections back to the industry and how ultimately the devil came and collected, right? So we're starting to find out that the story is much deeper than what the initial report came out to be, which obviously I am not surprised at all. Saw some of this stuff floating around the internet a couple of days ago, and I wanted to get to it sooner, but better now than never, right? Some of you may have seen this clip that we are going to watch going around TikTok, being posted on YouTube. It is a witness who claimed to have helped Angie Stone out of the van, and she has a completely different story than what was told by the media. Now, first thing first, I want to jump into this article that tells us basically what happened as far as the new details. Then we'll get into the clip of the witness who says she actually helped her and told her to sit down when she got out of that van, and when other people who were in the van were trying to get out as well. Now, those people haven't said anything because supposedly they have signed NDA agreements to where they cannot speak about the accident. And I don't think we've heard anything on record from the truck driver as well. Before that clip, we'll take the time to go into the story just a little bit more for those who may have not heard or remember all the details, all right? Now, I don't think we're going to find this kind of information from any major articles. You know, they don't seem to want to cover it as much as they did when she initially died. They're just going with what they put out in the news the first time. I think this is going to be covered up, and it's not going to be reported on the way we would like. So it says Angie Stone, the 63-year-old celebrated Grammy-nominated R&B singer, tragically passed away on March 1st, 2025. in a car accident involving an 18-wheeler in Alabama. Her death has since become the subject of significant speculation and controversy, particularly surrounding the details of the crash. A careful examination of the events surrounding her death unveils a complex narrative fueled by conflicting accounts and conspiracy theories. According to multiple reputable sources, including the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, Angie Stone was a passenger in a 2021 Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van that was involved in a crash on Interstate 65 near Montgomery, Alabama. The accident occurred around 4:25 a.m. on March 1st. Initial reports indicate that the van first overturned in a single vehicle crash, the cause of which remains under investigation. Now remember, that's what I was ranting on about in the first video. How in the world did this van just overturn out of nowhere? But it says that cause is still under investigation. You know, I don't know what they're investigating. If there's no cameras or anything, there's nothing to investigate. You're never going to really know why it crashed, because I'm sure the people that were in the van have already told it, but I don't think we're going to hear from them. It says following this initial event, the overturned van was struck by a 2021 Freightliner Cascadia, an 18-wheeler driven by a 33-year-old man from Skidmore, Texas. So we know this was a sacrifice. We know she was killed by the industry. We already know that. As soon as the video dropped, a bunch of y'all already knew that the driver, the male driver of the 18-wheeler, was a 33-year-old man. We know this was a sacrifice. It's just coming down to the fact that they covered up how she may have actually died. So it says Stone was pronounced dead at the scene, making her the sole fatality amongst the van's 9 passengers, which included her band members and backup dancers. Now it goes on to say the other 8 were injured and transported to a nearby medical facility for treatment. The sequence of events has been corroborated by various news outlets such as AL.com, TMZ, and the Associated Press, all citing official statements from the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency. So it says, however, in the days following Stone's tragic passing, a different narrative began to circulate on social media platforms like X, raising questions about the circumstances surrounding her death. Post dated March 16th, 2025 suggested that there was no 18-wheeler involved and claimed that there were no fatalities in the accident. One particularly provocative post speculated that the passengers of the van might be hiding the truth about the incident, implying that Stone had not died in the crash as reported. The narrative was further fueled by an alleged eyewitness account suggesting that Stone might have survived the initial overturn, only to be struck by the truck afterward. Now, this is the clip that we're going to get into here in a second. It says these claims starkly contrast the earlier reports, which are bolstered by detailed statements from the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, including specific information about the occupants of the van and the driver of the truck. According to official reports, the crash occurred near the 162-mile marker, approximately 5 miles south of Montgomery. Then it goes on to say, notably, a discussion thread on Lipstick Alley from March 4th includes testimony from a witness who claims to have assisted someone, potentially Angie Stone, immediately after the van's initial crash. This individual described a scenario consistent with the two-collision narrative presented by Alabama law enforcement, including the chaos of the scene when the 18-wheeler struck. This suggestion that Stone may have been alive after the initial crash but then fatally wounded when the truck hit the scene adds complexity to the existing narrative. Critically examining the conflicting claims, it is essential to highlight that the unsubstantiated posts on social media lack credible and official support. Most notably, the accounts that deny the involvement from the 18-wheeler are unverified and often rooted in speculation. We already know that is going to be the case because none of the actual articles, TMZ, so on and so on, that reported on it first, they're not going to go back and update these articles and listen to, a narrative that's not controlled and basically put out by them. I feel like this is going to continue to be speculation, and unless it's thoroughly investigated and they want to really put out the way that she died because it was so intentional, everything adds up. 33-year-old driver, supposedly she is pulled out of the van and then she gets struck by that truck, officially unintentionally, if that makes sense. But we know this was intentional. It's the reason why she's the only one to die out of 9 people. It doesn't add up. So with that being said, y'all, we'll jump into this clip of the witness that supposedly pulled her out of the car, or at least helped her get out of the car. And we'll come back and talk about it some more. All right. Check this out.
Here's the story. About 4 a.m. on Saturday morning, me and my daughter were driving to Charleston, South Carolina for her Sweet 16 birthday getaway. We came up to a truck with a trailer and its flashers were on, so we slowed down some, and that's when I noticed there was an overturned vehicle in the fast lane. And it looked like it just happened. I pulled over, I put my flashers on, and I told my daughter to stay in the car, and I ran over. It was a van, and I ran over, and there were so many people in this van, and they were just trying to get out. And I asked if they'd called the cops, and they said, we're just trying to get out. And they were helping this woman out off the side of the van, and I grabbed her hand and I helped her get down, and she seemed out of it, and I was holding her hand and she was wobbling around, and I said, baby, you got to sit down. And then the next thing I know, I flew and I fell down to the ground, and it felt like something not ran over me but brushed over me. Like something just swiped over my body, and I got up and I could hear screaming, and I just focused in on one screaming, and it was my daughter, and all I could do was run across the highway and tell her to get back in the car. She had to move the car because if somebody else hit us, it could hit her. So she moved the car farther up the interstate, and I called 911, and they said they were on their way. And then all I could think to do was get to my daughter. And that's all I could do in that time. And when I was walking to my daughter, we're really running. The best that I can do, I was in so much pain. My chest felt like an elephant was sitting on it. My legs were so hurt and sore. And I looked up, and there was an 18-wheeler that had crossed the median into oncoming traffic. And I knew that's what hit me and ran over, and brushed over me, was the 18-wheeler. And my daughter's freaking out. She'd already called my husband by then and my father-in-law. And I just told her, we've got to get to the hospital. I can't breathe. It was so hard to breathe. I'm going to post a video of the 18-wheeler after I left the hospital, driving back through to get to my husband and my son. I will not be posting the vehicle in the video because somebody did pass away. They did. And I won't be posting that for respect for their family. I'm sore, I'm bruised all on the right side of my body. I'm very stiff everywhere. But I will keep you guys updated. And the video is going to come at the end, okay? Hug your family tight. Hug your family tight.
All right, y'all. So that's the story of a lady who's now supposedly deleted her TikTok, also deleted that video that she recorded about stumbling upon the accident in the middle of the night at 4 a.m., right? According to the reports, the accident happened around 4:25, 4:30 a.m., right? So if we want to believe that, the timing of her story makes sense, right? Now, the rest of her story, to me, only raises more questions. I don't think it proves or solves anything. She said she pulled up to where a truck and a trailer were stopped and had its lights on. So she described a truck with a trailer attached, right? So we're thinking 18-wheeler is already there, parked with his hazard lights on, basically. Then she says she sees the van flipped over in the fast lane. She said, did y'all call the police? They said, we're just trying to get people out, or we're just trying to get out. Then she says they were trying to help a woman out. And that woman eventually got out. She never said Angie Stone. None of that. Even after the accident and her saying it's been a couple of days and she was trying to process it, she never mentions Angie Stone's name. Maybe, I don't know, if there's more to the video, you would think afterwards she learned who died. Supposedly they're saying the family made her take the video down. She never mentions Angie by name. So we don't know if she was saying that, Angie, you need to sit down, or if that was Angie she was talking to. We don't even know if Angie died in that van, if she was hit by the 18-wheeler, or if she was completely dead before any of this happened and that was all staged. We know she was sacrificed, but that's why I said her story doesn't do anything but raise more questions. I don't even, I almost want to say I don't even believe it happened at 4:30. All the footage we got of everything was that early morning. It was completely sunny outside. There's no footage that exists of it being dark. It doesn't matter if the time hadn't changed yet or anything. At 4 a.m. in the morning, it's completely dark. We have no footage of that. And it just raises more questions about everything. Because if she was grazed or, felt the brush of an 18-wheeler hit her, if an 18-wheeler actually hit Angie Stone, and let's just go with the narrative that she survived the van accident, right? She ends up getting out of the van and she's ran over by an 18-wheeler that was already sitting there. You have to think about this. The 18-wheeler was already sitting there. Supposedly, he crossed traffic and was coming toward oncoming traffic. I don't even know. It doesn't even make sense, because you have to remember, when she started that story, she said she came upon a truck and a trailer that was already sitting there. We're just going to assume that that was an 18-wheeler. Then you have to ask yourself, this is a highway. Where are the other people that saw the accident? She's the only one that saw it. She was the only one driving that night or that morning. There has to have been at least 10 to 15 other people who were traveling down the highway at that time and saw that there was a car crash there. Where are those witness accounts to confirm the time? She would have got hit by an 18-wheeler as an Angie Stone. Her body would be destroyed. We're talking about probably, blood everywhere, a really gruesome scene. But something tells me that, when we were reading that article and people were like, yeah, there's no 18-wheeler, there's no this, no that. I'm almost leaning toward this being completely staged, and I don't even think she died in the van. Angie might not even have been there. She probably wasn't in the van. She wasn't even there. They sacrificed and killed her somewhere else and staged that accident. That's almost what it's feeling like, because the story just doesn't add up to that actually being how it happened. Maybe she did stumble upon the accident, but I don't think she was helping Angie Stone. It's not making sense to me. We know that the driver was 33 years old. We know the symbolism and the numerology is there, and she was definitely sacrificed. Like I said, there's questions. Where are other witnesses that drove past the accident and did not stop? Because we know there's going to be people who's just going to drive past. Not everyone's going to stop. This lady supposedly felt the need to stop, and she ends up damn near getting hit by the 18-wheeler, supposedly. This is definitely turned into a mystery. Has a lot of people asking questions about it, and I sure would like to see a further detailed report, which I don't think we're going to get. There's a possibility that we can, but I just don't think her story wraps up the entire thing. And, she was alive in the van. She got out and she was hit by an 18-wheeler. You have to think about how she began that story. There was already a trailer sitting there. So something doesn't make sense here. I'll let y'all jump down in the comments and let me know what y'all think about this. Any other theories, if it was completely staged to y'all or not, and Angie was not even there. A tractor trailer, never hit anyone. Definitely let me know y'all opinions. I will for sure be making another video if anything else comes out, y'all. That being said, it's Black Balloon, and I'm going to see y'all soon. I'm out.